Welcome to Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting Network. On this Tuesday, November 28th, we've got an action-packed show. We'll be discussing Monday Night Football game, including the Bears' offensive play calling. We'll break down two games and go beyond the box score, and we're going to look at how the market is unfolding so far. Before we do get into all that, I want you to hit the like button, subscribe, just show some love to the creators and those who take their time to be here. Of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsor, Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sports book and available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what the pros have known for the last 25 years. Everyday competitive odds, your trusted sports book. Bet smart, bet Pinnacle. With that being said, I'm your host, George Tsilfidis. I'm excited to get the show on the road, and you can obviously tell if you're watching on YouTube. We've got less hat, more hair, great analysis. Drew Dinsick, co-host of the Deep Dive podcast, analyst for NBC Sports Edge. Drew, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I enjoy these podcasts tremendously, and it's an honor and a privilege to be a guest a contributor today on Forward Progress.
I felt like we needed to get you on since we title our Tuesday show the Deep Dive. I don't think we figured out what we were doing until like 5 weeks into the season, but I appreciate you coming on and christening this show as well. I love to break down film and talk about stuff beyond the box score. You guys do a great job all the time on it, and that's why I'm honored to have you on. Drew, Monday Night Football was a privilege for people who were watching last night. Game finished 12-10, and I guess I want to start with Justin Fields. He was blitzed on 52% of his dropbacks, which was expected. The Bears' counter that game plan was short passes. He had 13 screen passes. Justin Fields had 2.4 air yards per attempt.
Oh my God.
He threw 21 passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. Obviously, this was a counter to Brian Flores' heavy blitz scheme, but truthfully, I think it just says that they don't trust Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to cut this too. Like, guy's coming off of a pretty serious thumb injury. And if you're trying to protect him, make sure he doesn't, lose confidence in himself. And, you're trying to find ways to just get a win. And but none of it felt good. None of it felt like football I want to watch. None of it felt like the future of the game. And none of it answers the most important question that you have to answer as a franchise, which is, are you moving forward with Fields after this year, or are you moving on? Like, the Bears have massive draft capital in the 2024 quarterback-rich draft.
Yeah,
you need to put a game plan together that answers the questions about the futures of your franchise more than you need to put a game plan together to win. And if you are trying to just, everybody is like looking at this like, if we don't win games this year, we're going to lose our jobs. That's an internal problem that you have as an organization. If you have a GM and a coach who are fighting for jobs and winning games, but in ways that are not helping you figure out the future of your franchise, this is a disaster for all involved. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was quotes floating around last week about, I don't even remember the guy's name, but it was so ridiculous. I was making jokes about it all week, and of course I've already forgotten it. But like, one of the president of operations is like, he's like, yeah, he's considering a clean slate, and he's going to get his guys in there. And it's like, oh, come on. Like, we're at the point now where people who have no pedigree, no experience, no authority to be, to be deciding the future of the Bears, or they're going to clean house and they're going to get their guys in there. And it's like, you look at what's happening in Carolina, learn from this, like, take some lesson from this, and it doesn't feel like the Bears are learning.
No, they don't. It also doesn't feel like Justin Fields will be their starting quarterback next year. I think the Atlanta Falcons, who may not be bad enough to get one of these quarterbacks in the draft, might be interested in a guy like Justin Fields and his skill set. You know what? The Bears defense, though, has been quietly underrated for a while now in the NFL. Since week 5, Drew, they're the 6th best defensive team in EPA per play, 8th best in defensive success rate, number 1 in both metrics stopping the run. The competition over that time is a mixed bag. It's the Commanders, the Vikings twice, Raiders, Chargers, Saints, Panthers, Lions. There's some good, there's some bad, but the defense has been really good. And I just wonder, Matt Eberflus, who took over play calling, he's kind of doing a good job with what he has to work with.
I would say so, but at the same time, like it's there are parts of what the Bears are doing that you have to say are good process, right? Like getting DJ Moore.
Mhm.
That's good process, right? Getting in, retaining Montez Sweat. Maybe you paid a little too much for him, but that's good process. Like you don't have you have a talent poor team, and I thought they used their free agent capital last season a little bit poorly.
Yeah.
Like if you really you're going to go out and get the best, elite linebackers, and all right, fine, but the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, really, of this Bears defense. They're outstanding against the run. They're solid tackling. They have a competent linebacking core. Like, well done. You could have gotten that by just keeping Roquan Smith, but that's fine. And I think there are a million things you can second guess about the direction of the franchise. It all starts with polls and at the GM position, but Eberflus is coaching the defense very well. I think you have to rate this defense as a top half of the league unit right now, as currently rostered, and with the health that they have, particularly in the secondary, which
Yep.
didn't exist for a lot of the beginning of the season when they were awful. Marcus rates this team as bottom 5 defensively. That's not correct. No way.
Yeah. No, I think people have to adjust this Bears defense way up. How about the Vikings? Josh Dobbs, the magic was short-lived. He's been a turnover machine, and they're going into a bye. They've got Nick Mullins is back from injury. Jaron Hall, who they initially went with before Dobbs. Who do you think is the quarterback coming out of the bye? And then do you think with Justin Jefferson returning, they can still salvage a good offensive season the rest of the way?
Wow. I was more confused about the second half coaching decisions that Kevin O'Connell made than I have been about anything I've seen in football in the last several weeks. Since losing Kirk Cousins, it felt like Kevin O'Connell was given a lot of latitude to try to rescue the franchise to a degree, and he did amazingly well. Like he was just like blacked out. Boom, boom, boom. Just calling it all right. Everything was going right. He was on an absolute heater. And then Dobbs has a couple of gross first half turnovers, and it felt like he just completely lost the plot. The 3-play drive after the miraculous fumble was kind of the real tipping point. Like the Kevin O'Connell that I know from a couple weeks ago, he's not just running into a cloud of dust and then just a joke of a pass play just to kind of get the timeouts wiped out and then leaning on his defense. He's playing a lot more aggressively in that spot. He's getting the first down, and he's either scoring again, making it a 2-score game or at least a touchdown game, or he's never giving the ball back to the Bears. The fact that they did it and with such a meager punt was pretty disappointing. Like you didn't give yourself an opportunity to even pin them. An offense that has done nothing. Like it was a weird kind of lack of judgment, I thought, on the part of Kevin O'Connell, which we haven't seen a lot lately. And honestly, it speaks to, I think he has lost confidence in Dobbs, and it probably will go back to Jaron Hall, would be my guess. Jaron Hall going to be any good? Probably not. And the schedule isn't especially tough, but you got Packers, Lions to end. And unless you win all those all 3 games there, you're not winning the North, and you're probably not getting a wild card. So it looked like the Vikings could keep their heads afloat just enough to maybe be frisky. And now I think quite differently of them. Although I will say this, Brian Flores is coordinating an amazing defense on the other side of the ball there. They lost aggressiveness also in kind of a really weird time of the game, I thought. Last night.
It was strange all around.
It was wild. But I don't know. What's your read?
I think last night epitomized like how poor the state of the league is as far as offense and trusting quarterbacks. Like we talk about these primetime unders, and it's like obviously a running gag for everybody who wants to update it every primetime. But there was 2 coaches that basically coached scared and not trusting their offense the whole way. And then we're about to talk about some film review with some more versions of teams that just don't trust their guy. And it kind of just epitomized, man, the state of quarterback play right now is awful in the NFL. And part of that is injury, but part of that is, coaches are basically playing to punt to minimize mistakes as opposed to being aggressive. And I just don't like the direction that the NFL has been heading in this year. Especially, you're going to cover Steelers Bengals, and I want you to give me your thoughts on that game. But the poor Bengals, they're awful with Jake Browning at quarterback here.
Yeah, Jake Browning is not the answer. I don't know what the question is, but he's not the answer. He had a couple moments on film, but yeah, I think you make a good point, which is, and actually, this is actually kind of insane. Like, Bears 3-1 in primetime games this year somehow, some way. I don't know what's crazier, that they won 3 primetime games or that they were on primetime 4 times.
Yeah.
But it was very much an exercise last night in teams not really having faith to attack downfield with your quarterback for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Pressure, injury, skill position players, who knows? Like, there's lots of reasons, but it just wasn't happening last night. And amazingly, so far, if you go back the entire kind of advanced database that exists at Pro Football Reference, the Bears now have 3 of the bottom 11 games on record in terms of intended air yards for their quarterback. 2 of them are fields this year, one against the Packers and one against the Vikings. And the third was the very first start ever made by Teabag against the Raiders.
What was that, the 1.4 intended air yards or something?
Yeah, I got 1.8 there, right?
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's not good. It's not interesting. It's not good football to watch. And what else is crazy is that there's lots of other really, really, really low intended air yard games in 2023. Yeah. You get the Clayton Tune game for Arizona against Cleveland, which had 2.5. You get the Jets game against Miami with the with Timmy Boyle this last week. You got the Tommy DeVito loss against the Jets, which was 1.4.
Although now he's all or nothing.
Now he's going. Yeah.
It's a sack or a 30-yard pass attempt. It's kind of crazy how that switched.
But yeah, in general, like aggressiveness, downfield passing, like some terrible combination of bad quarterback play, coaches losing confidence, and good defensive play. Some stew has really made it a tough hang, especially in these primetime games.
What did you think of the Steelers Bengals? My takeaway, Drew, was that the game was not. The Steelers won the game by a lot more than the score said. Like 2-1 play discrepancy, time of possession. Jamar Chase's 2 biggest catches came on deflections from the defensive backs that he caught. Deontay Johnson drops a touchdown, and then they fumble the very next play, like a 7-point swing against the Steelers. I thought the Bengals were lucky to even be in this game.
Extremely. They won the first half somehow. They lost the first half yardage battle 250 to 90 or something like that, and they were winning the game. The Jaylen Warren fumble was massive for a couple reasons. That was the most fluid the Steelers offense has looked in a while, and the fact that happened early in the game with the new offensive vision, like, that does portend good things for the future, I suppose. But the real kind of takeaway from that play, and the stuff that sticks out on film when you rewatch that, is, what in the world is Deontay Johnson doing? Yeah. What do we do? What is he doing? Like, the zero awareness, zero effort, and then to follow that up by kind of amplifying the clip that somebody snapped of that, and being like, "Oh, we'll get him next time," or "Better luck next time," whatever he said. It was like, what are we doing here, man? Like I get it, you don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore, but like, this is your window to really show up and show out and get a deal somewhere else if you really want to leave.
And you're a playoff team, Drew. It's not like they're a 3-win team, and you're going to be playing playoff football in January somehow. Just get it together, man.
Yeah, but your point is extremely fair and correct, which is that the Bengals had no business being in this game as long as they were. There were a couple of the one turnover that the Bengals had was really kind of like that ended it, I think. Because they were driving in that moment with the lead, having no business being in the game. They were driving, and it really did feel like has the voodoo been lost? Like
Yeah.
this is the kind of game the Steelers are usually in the other side of the other side of the coin here, where they have no business being in games and are somehow winning, and now they're in this game clearly and they're losing. But I think if nothing else, the only takeaways I had rewatching it from the Steelers offense is there's always been a massive disconnect between what the Steelers are trying to do in the running game and what they are asking their quarterback to do in the passing game.
Yeah.
And a disconnect is so severe that it makes them very predictable, right? And the nature of almost all of defense and this waste defensive kind of philosophy has infiltrated the NFL to this point in this season. It is about reading and reacting and being one step ahead with your linebackers and your safeties in terms of roles, responsibilities, and stopping pass run. A team like the Niners and a team like the Dolphins are phenomenally good at weaving a play pre-snap looking like a run or a pass, confusing, freezing everyone. Like literally they make it so that every important defender on the chessboard is frozen until they have their pieces in places that they want to be to make the play a success.
Yeah.
And the Steelers just do it the hard way for no reason. That was the entire kind of Matt Canada ethos was, he's just pressing buttons like, as opposed to having a vision and trying to make it like a ballet. Right. I thought I was looking for evidence in that game in particular that there was something there, like there's some vision, some more, especially because they kind of brought in they elevated the running backs coach, who gets a lot out of that unit, I will say. And if he is, if anything, like you would expect a guy like that is like, well, I would really love some balance here or some lack of predictability in a way that makes it easier to run. Like I didn't see a ton of that, unfortunately. They just kind of won with effort. They
beat a really bad defense.
They beat a bad defense with effort. It was try hard. Yeah.
Since he's been awful defensively, I downgraded like the Bengals a whole touchdown after the Burrow injury. And like my takeaway was that game was it not enough? Like this Bengals team is not good. Like Burrow covers a lot of warts. They might have one of the 3 or 4 worst defenses in football. They give up everything. They let you have whatever you want on the ground, through the air, over the middle. And that my takeaway was, man, the Bengals are a lot worse than I actually expected. They look like one of the worst teams in football right now, like one of the 6 or 7 bottom teams. And it's funny, that's how important Joe Burrow is. They go from Super Bowl contender with him to, a walkover pushover without him. I broke down the Titans and Panthers. I like to make myself suffer when I watch film. And I got to tell you, full disclosure, I had no money on this game, but I actually think the Titans backers were a little lucky to get to the window with this one. Okay. They got a couple of fortunate, they got 10 points gifted to them, like one on a fumble that they inherit inside the 20, and one on dumb penalties from Carolina to extend the drive and give them a field goal. After the first 17 points in the first half, Drew, 10 of which I thought they were gifted, they did nothing in the second half. They had their second half drives were as followed: 4 plays and a punt, 4 plays and a punt, 4 plays and a punt, 7 plays and a punt. They had 2 offensive plays in the Panthers' end of the field in the second half, and those were from the Carolina 47. Like they literally did not move the ball, had no threat of it. Where they got lucky is, man, the Panthers are in such trouble. It's not just the play calling, although I'll say the play calling is brutal. They run too much out of shotgun, which I don't get. Miles Sanders is not exactly the fastest running back. Giving him the ball 7 yards in the backfield out of shotgun doesn't feel like a smart idea. Like they had first drive, it's promising drive, 3rd and 1. They drop back and do a weird toss back that was literally 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Drew, they needed 1 yard, and you're handing it to your running back 9 yards behind the sticks that he needs to gain. It's not just that though. Bryce Young, his limitations are like clear. He had a play, Drew, where he had a screen pass. He had to jump pass to get the ball over the defender, over the edge. That is problematic. He feels very small. The receivers don't create separation, and the play calling was bad. It's no wonder why Carolina is a disaster. It's not all Bryce Young's fault, but there's a lot of fault to go around with Carolina.
Yeah. It's definitely partly Bryce Young's fault, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I think the scary part for anyone who really cares about the Panthers and their future is it's not fixable problems.
No,
You can't each size. Yeah.
They're married to this guy, and they have no picks to make it happen. I don't know how they get out of this hell. I don't know. Did you catch the Dave Tepper clip today that made the rounds?
Disasters. Yeah.
Jason, can we pull that in? I'd like to hear it because this was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
No, it's been reported, and we talked about it. Originally, we were going to go to the number 2 pick, and we thought we would get CJ because we thought the Texans were going to pick Bryce. And listen, we preferred Bryce. He was our number 1 pick. We had a lot of conviction. But you know, in answer to your questions, it's just not the way the process was done. The process was done the way the process was done. And again, even though if there was a process with 5 people in the room and the way the votes came in, it was Frank was the first choice. I always could veto that choice. And even if it was Bryce and the votes came in unanimously in this particular case, I could have vetoed that choice.
All right. Why are you even talking about CJ Stroud? Like
the process was the process, George.
You know what this is? This is him trying to say that it wasn't his fault for drafting the wrong quarterback. That's him saying we made a mistake, but I'm absolving myself of the blame. And he's talking about it not being unanimous and a conversation. Like what? How does that help Bryce Young at all? You're married to this guy for at least another year. You've got to convince a coach to come out and coach this guy and hope that he's the guy with no first round pick, no escape from it. Yeah. What are you doing, Dave Tepper? What the hell did you accomplish by going out and being so vocal about the uncertainty in the process around Bryce Young? I don't know. Carolina might be the worst positioned franchise right now in football just because they are stuck to a bad quarterback.
They're not in a good position.
No,
I can tell you that much. But I think actually, like, there are probably worse, and I'll try to think of examples. But it almost feels worse if you're in purgatory than if you make a mistake and learn from it.
Okay,
right? If you can learn from this mistake as an organization and hit the reset button pretty quickly here, maybe relatively little harm is done. Right. The way that I understood the way things went down from the way, the reporting at the time, the stuff people were saying behind the scenes, the Texans and the Bears had a deal in principle to swap 1-2. And the Texans, everybody had assumed, I don't know if it was true, but everyone had assumed that they had Bryce Young 1 on their board. And that was why they were going to make that swap. And then separately, the Bears and Panthers had conversations about swapping 2-9. The Bears were just trying to get as many draft picks as they could and pick, an offensive lineman in that 9 to 10 range. Yeah. And I think, the circumstances that landed them Bryce Young are pretty, they were pretty, fluky to a degree, I guess. Yeah. And so I think he's just trying to say, hey, this was just a weird happenstance. Like, there's nothing to learn from this. It's kind of what he's saying, which feels very wrong. And I think ultimately, whatever talent evaluation you have in house that led you to this point, whatever coaching evaluation you did to hire Frank Reich, who you fired after 10 games.
Yeah.
Like that really is where they should have gone. Like the CJ Stroud, a future, 10-year starter in the NFL. Yes. The clear kind of bona fide leader right now in that draft class, as far as functional future quarterbacks, without question.
Yeah.
Right. But the bigger problem, the bigger failing is clearly what you did in terms of staffing your head coaching room. And if you got, if you put together a philosophy of this is our plan, this is what we're going to do. We're going to draft a young quarterback and we're going to have the pieces in place to develop that young quarterback over multiple years. And you are already hitting eject on it. Like that is the failure, really. And then to get up in front and say, well, our process, it was fluky, there's nothing to really learn. We kind of wanted Stroud anyway.
We should have had Stroud, but the Texans boned us by not doing their deal.
They dinked around and waited too long, and then we made a worse deal.
Yeah,
because we got impatient and we made a bad pick with that deal. Like, that's ultimately the reality of what happened. But even worse than that, you made a bad decision in your hiring process of your next head coach and staff, and you are already, changing gears. And like, I'm not one that says you should eat a mistake for eternity, right?
Yep.
And just live with that for an extra year and put the fans through an extra year of hell. And like, if you already know that you've made a mistake and you just want to just move on, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be upset about that, but that's what you need to get up here and own on the day after you fire Frank Reich.
Yeah, 100%.
We made a bad choice on our head coach is what you needed to say.
Yeah, it reflects poorly on the owner, right? Or the GM whenever you hire the wrong guy. That was Brian. I'm a Dolphins fan. Brian Flores went through like 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years. That was his, like, there you want to talk about his calling card. That was his mistake. You couldn't figure out the guy you wanted and the vision you wanted to carry out. And that ultimately reflected poorly on you in your ability to, bring talent in. You know who flukes out in all of this, Drew, is the Houston Texans, because like the number 2 pick steamed in many different ways in the betting markets. And
sure,
to this day, people are adamant that DeMeco Ryans and the coaching staff wanted Will Anderson. The
100%.
GM,
that is 100% true, by the way.
The GM and the owner wanted CJ Stroud, and their compromise will trade up to 3 and get both. But DeMeco Ryans is very, very lucky that whoever made the call to draft Stroud just gave him a 10-year career. Because if they drafted Will Anderson and Stroud went to Tennessee, who wanted to trade up to 3 and they were hungry for it, they would have had egg on their face, would have been the dumbest franchise for passing on a guy who's not only like looks like the best rookie quarterback in a long, long time. If he takes them to the playoffs when they were projected with the 3rd lowest win total, Drew, and everything about him screams leader. Like, whenever I hear this guy talk at the podium, I come away more and more impressed. And Houston basically fell ass backwards into a franchise quarterback, and they almost blew it in true Houston fashion.
Yeah, I agree with 100% with your breakdown there. I can only add a couple little sprinkles on top, which are there were production meetings held at ESPN on the day of the draft when everybody said, okay, prepare for Bryce, Will Anderson, Titans trading up for CJ Stroud. Like, that was the expectation across every information circle in the NFL.
Yeah.
My understanding of why they were willing to pass on Stroud at 2 was because I don't think the talent evaluators in the Texans office had him as QB2 on their board.
Wild.
I think they had Will Levis as QB2. There were a lot of people that said that in the kind of week leading up to it, right? Yeah. I think the owner, or even maybe Cal McNair's wife, kind of stepped in and said, like, no, this is what we're doing. Someone in the ownership groups did veto and said, no, we're doing this. Yeah. And I think that has saved everyone's job, which is unbelievable. And the masterstroke of whatever, people are giving DeMeco Ryans flowers for Coach of the Year consideration. She's number 2 favorite right now.
Yeah.
Your plan was to go into war with Will Anderson on defense and Davis Mills, presumably.
Yeah.
Like that, like Davis Mills was, you were going to go to war this year with Davis Mills.
That was your masterstroke idea.
Okay. Yeah. And the front office there, like, they probably capitulated and said, okay, fine, we'll take Stroud, knowing the Titans wanted him 3. And if you can take the guy that was trading up into 3, then all of a sudden your offer for 3 looks better. Right. Like, they were like, okay, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Who cares about our future? We're probably all getting fired anyway.
It just goes to show you, Drew, we sometimes we credit organizations as making brilliant moves. And oftentimes it's like, it's the Ravens taking Lamar Jackson at 32. Look how much foresight they had. And it's like, no, they took Hayden Hurst like 23rd overall. They almost fucked this up too. And right,
that's a great point.
Right. The Ravens' brilliant organization took Hayden Hurst, a journeyman tight end now, over Lamar Jackson. And they did eventually correct it at 32, but they also made the
Yeah.
same mistake that everybody else did.
Yeah.
Let's talk about playoff picture.
Real quick before we go off that.
Yeah.
Everyone in the NFC South could have taken Lamar Jackson off the Baltimore Ravens' hands this season.
I know. Not one offer, and I don't get it. At worst, force their hand and do a poison pill type deal that they would not be able to front load the fuck out of that contract. Do whatever you could that they could not match.
Of course. You know what's even more egregious and a failure of process than trading up to the 1 and drafting the wrong guy? Because quarterback draft is not an exact science.
Yeah, you're taking an educated gamble.
Yeah, you're taking an educated gamble. Like they're gonna live with the ramifications forever of passing on CJ Stroud for Bryce Young. Like that seems like the current reality for the next 10 years for these guys.
Yeah,
they could have taken a known quantity of Lamar Jackson. And it would have cost them about the same, except they could have had DJ Moore still in house.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's something else, the decisions they make. And like you look at Denver and Cleveland, who are saddled to 2 quarterbacks right now that are anchoring them down. All right, let's look at the playoff picture, Drew, because I'm a Dolphins fan, and the people in the audience know that. I feel we're comfortably in the playoffs at this point. Others are in this race that I'm used to Miami being in. And I want to start with looking at a team that's in the AFC playoffs currently, the Cleveland Browns. Jason, if we can pull that up, they're currently 7-4, and they are currently the 6th seed in the AFC North. If you scroll down, Jason, I just want to see who's on the bubble of the playoffs and their records. It looks like Houston and Denver and Buffalo are chasing them. Let's look at Cleveland's schedule, because I'm not optimistic about this team. Like their odds or probability of making the playoffs last week was like -430, and I'm like, that seems mispriced. And even now, it still feels highly priced. Can we look at the Cleveland's remaining schedule? So they've got a game against the Rams, home against the Jaguars, home against the Bears, at the Texans, home against the Jets. And then what's the last game? At the Cincinnati Bengals. How many for sure wins do you see on that? And how many for sure losses?
2 wins, 1 coin flip, and 3 losses.
Right. So it feels like nine wins and the 1 coin flip game and what it will come down to. Do you think ultimately we see Cleveland in the playoffs?
Man. I don't really want to.
Nobody wants a wild card of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Indianapolis. I want Buffalo and Houston in the playoffs.
Absolutely, without question. Like, I guess in order of what would I want, Buffalo in the mix without question. Like they might be the best team in the AFC. If not the best, they're right there with the likes of the Dolphins, Ravens, and Chiefs. Like they're right there.
They're 6-6 with 4th best point differential, Drew. I don't think I've ever seen that before in my life.
They're outstanding at beating themselves. Nobody else can beat them, but they can beat themselves like nobody's business. Yeah.
Let's look at their schedule though, right? Because they are in a bye, and like they've got a gauntlet. They've got to probably win 4 of the next 5, but they're good enough to win 4 of the next 5. They go to Kansas City off a bye, home to Dallas, at the Chargers, which will probably be more like a home game, home to New England, and then at Miami, who may be resting starters in that game. Yeah.
You want to know something that might surprise people? You remember the Buffalo Bills team that came 13 seconds away from beating Pat Mahomes?
Yep.
Was that one of the better teams you can remember? Just an outstanding team, right?
That was Buffalo's Super Bowl.
That was their Super Bowl.
They would have beat the brakes off of Cincy and the Rams.
Oh, it would have been glorious, no doubt. That team started 7-6, George.
And they got hot right at I like Drew. I'm telling you, man. I think they're gonna make the run here. I really do. I think there's too much talent not to make this run.
I think so too. And so I want them in the mix for entertainment purposes. And I think actually they might be an interesting bet on, depending on what happens this week. Because like what are we, 4-point dogs for the Browns against the Rams?
Yeah. Three and a half now. Yep.
Yeah. That's a big number. And the situation with Myles Garrett's shoulder is worth careful following, because that was weird that he was in a sling and said he heard a pop, but oh no, it's structurally fine. Like, when have we ever heard a guy that had got medically cleared by the Cleveland Browns for a shoulder injury and then ultimately 1 week later was done for the season? Oh, it happened 5 weeks ago with your franchise quarterback.
Can you imagine being the 2 seed in the AFC and you fucking get Buffalo in a first round, the most dangerous 7 seed in the history of football?
Oh yeah, I mean, Baltimore, the 2-7 of Baltimore Buffalo probably goes off pick'em, right?
I think you have to go Baltimore 2.5. I don't think you can get the 3 because there's gonna be too much Buffalo action there. But yeah, it'll be under the 3. Especially the version of Baltimore we saw against the Chargers. I don't know. Life after Mark Andrews might be a little bit more difficult. What about the Texans? I want to look at the Texans.
So yeah, that's the other thing we desperately need, and this is for all of us, for the lifetime of future fans of football.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Let's pull that up, Jason. I want to see the Texans' remaining schedule.
We have got to get these guys in.
Okay,
we've got to.
Home to Denver, where they're over a 3-point favorite now. At the Jets, at the Titans. That game against Cleveland, that's the money, right? It's home against Cleveland, home against Tennessee, at Indianapolis. Like, is it crazy that I think every single one of those games are winnable?
They can win out. Yes, I think they're alive for the AFC South still.
Yeah, I do too.
Even with 2 losses to the Jags, or no, with the split with the Jags. They split with the Jags, but they have 2 losses in division, right? They're 1-2 in the South. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they lost to
they lost to
Indy. That was awful.
Yeah. That was before they figured out Stroud could throw the ball really.
Yeah, that was brutal loss. That might come back to bite them.
If you had to call it right now, currently Cleveland and Indy are in the playoffs. Houston and Buffalo. Do you think we see both playoff teams out and Houston and Buffalo in? I think so too.
I do. I think
Pittsburgh will be in because
I think the only team that's going to be hot frauds that'll get into the playoff in the AFC is going to be the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree. All of a sudden, that 4 seed worst division winner is going to want to draw Pittsburgh in.
Right. Indy might get. I mean, the Jags might get lucky. Indy's in trouble because the Jonathan Taylor thumb injury, I think, is going to be something people want to keep an eye on.
Drew, what price would you need for the Bills? Like, they have to win 4 out of 5, probably.
So this is the problem. They would be making history.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you know why, but no team has ever finished the year on the road and then gone to the Super Bowl as a wild card.
Really?
Winning 4 games in a row on the road has never been accomplished. It is an extremely tough ask, especially for a team that's already beat up and has no defense.
Yeah.
But so I think realistically, the dream probably dies in the AFC title game. Like, it depends. Like I guess the way it would realistically play out, the Bills, they get in hot. Everybody believes they beat the likes of the Ravens in the 2-7, right? They go at the Chiefs in the 1-7 in the divisional round. They slay the Dragon. And then they let down in the AFC Championship game and let the Jags walk in or something insane, right? Or the Dolphins. It could be the Dolphins. They can't, George, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not sure if you ever heard of this, right? It's tough to beat a team 3 times. And the Bills are going to have to do it with the Dolphins if they want to get to the Super Bowl.
That's true. They have to beat the Dolphins in week 18 to get there.
Yeah.
What's a price that you need 30, 40 to 1 to start to even consider it?
I don't think it's crazy to take that just as a matter of it's going to get equity, right? All right. If you're playing the futures market, number one, you should be thinking about building a portfolio, not just throwing darts, right? Not just taking one at the beginning of the season and just riding with it.
There's some 33 to 1s out there. Is that a price that tempts you, or?
Definitely. Absolutely. I think because your question is that going to gain equity between now and when we get to the playoffs? I would say yes.
And if Cleveland loses this week and Indy loses this week and they beat KC next week, that price is 20 to 1 guaranteed.
Yeah, or shorter even. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think the way in completely in the blind, the AFC, I think the Chiefs end up still with the 1 seed, even though they got to play a bunch of teams with rest of advantages. I think Baltimore gets the 2. I think Miami 3, Jags 4. Steelers get the 5. Houston gets the 6, and the Buffalo Bills get in as the 7. The Buffalo Bills ruin the Baltimore Ravens in the 2-7. Pop them. The Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, you get his playoff stinker out of the way this year.
Yeah.
So that they're a competitive, fun team in the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
Dolphins cruise through to the divisional round. Jags take care of business against the lousy Steelers. And then you get Miami, Jacksonville in one of your divisional rounds, and then KC, Buffalo. And we'll put Miami and Buffalo in the AFC Championship game.
I like how you book football, Drew. I like your booking style. Let's look at NFC picture, because I was talking with Drew. I was talking with Rob Pizzola last week as San Fran was beating the dog shit out of Seattle.
Sure.
And we looked at their immediate schedule. Like, they've lost 3 out of 4, and their immediate schedule is difficult as well. Jason, if we can pull it up, because the Seahawks are like 6 and 5 right now, and currently the 6th seed. But they're at Dallas, at San Fran, versus Philly, at Tennessee, home to Pittsburgh, at Arizona. I'm counting 3, maybe 4 losses there.
Yeah, they're staring down the barrel of 8 and 9. And that's if they beat Tennessee and the Cardinals, who are going to have Kyler Murray presumably and playing for something, I guess.
100%. And the 2 wins are not even doable. So who do you think gets in? Because, Drew, I watched we all were optimistic about Green Bay, all of us in what we presume to be the Sharp community this offseason. We talked about over 7.5 wins being a good bet in division. And then the dream died a little, but some of us kept a little glimmer of hope. And then the offense got healthy. And guess what? Jordan Love actually looks kind of good. I want to see Green Bay's schedule, because they are 5 and 6. They have a very tough game this week, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Winnable, maybe. But after that, their schedule's very, very good. Jason, if we can pull that up, Green Bay schedule, because I like how it shapes up. They're home to Kansas City, at the Giants, home to Tampa, at Carolina, at Minnesota, home to Chicago. You think Green Bay is going to get into the playoffs here?
Yeah, I do, and I think the bet is after the KC game.
Yes, where they probably lose, and then the price will be really, really good after.
Yeah, 5 and 7, people kind of be back off the scent. I had going back through the tape from the week's games that were. I had the toughest squaring the Green Bay Detroit game, because I bet a lot on Detroit through teasers and first half, all kinds of stuff. Right?
I think all the teasers died on.
Yeah, awful. And I went into the rewatch thinking, like, boy, I'm gonna feel stupid for betting Detroit. And I with the rewatch, I was like I think I would do it again. I think I would do it again. And it was just a little bit fluky, because you can press the run button on Green Bay.
Yes.
And beat them up physically. And then
Detroit got away from it too early.
It got away from it too early because the margin, the fluky Goff fumble 6, which, by the way, was recovered by Jonathan Owens, who might be one of the worst starters in the NFL. Like, literally has no business being on the playing field. Go watch some of that tape from the Chargers game. My goodness gracious, I'm surprised he even got the green light to start against the Lions. But whatever the case is, fluky play. That set the margin to where Detroit got away from what would have been very successful against Green Bay and got into what was much tougher way to beat them. Yeah. And so it all kind of fell apart. And I will also say that for whatever reason, and I have no explanation for this, Jordan Love has struggled in these scripted portions of football games. He has been weak in first 15, first quarter, first half. EPA per play numbers were kind of in the realm of Zach Wilson territory. They were bad. Yeah. And then in second half, when games open up, when it becomes a little bit more like read and react and don't think as much, like, for whatever reason, he thrives in those type of environments. And so there was always like a sign, like there is a there with him. Like, it's there. You just got to unlock it. There's flashes. And it was almost like, with a short week, less time to prepare, with a bunch of injuries and less kind of structure, they just kind of will let him go out there and do his thing. And he's firing bullets to Christian Watson 50 yards down the field. He's throwing with anticipation. The game was going super slow for him. And is a lot of this because Detroit's defense is miserable? Yes. But like, there were a lot of signs of him being a bona fide professional quarterback. I don't think Green Bay matches up well with Kansas City, though. I think this is probably KC bet this week.
Did you see the text conversation with Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love? Did you hear about it?
No.
Okay, so they installed in their game plan Wednesday before the game that the first play of the game they're going to take a deep shot because they won the toss, Drew, and took the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Most teams defer, so
Sure.
their plan was let's try to catch him off guard and really throw a wrench into things. They had decided deep ball, play action, deep ball, first play of the game. Matt LaFleur texts Jordan Love the morning of and says, "I want to change the opening play." Right? He wants to put the training wheels back on him. You know what Jordan Love said? No, I want that play. And I'm like, that's the biology of like what's actually happening here, right? It's young receiver core. Matt LaFleur's trying to put some training wheels on him, and it's like, no, man, just you got speed. Jaden Reed's fast. He's getting touchdowns as a running back on reverse sweeps and everything. Christian Watson's fast. Tucker Kraft was one of the fastest tight ends in the combine as a rookie. Just trust your team. Just throw it to the wind and see if you've got a guy. Don't make him a check down quarterback. He's an all or nothing feast or famine. Some of his problems are still Drew. He has a fastball and he relies on it too much. There's a couple throws where if he just takes a little off it, you've got easier catches, and he hasn't learned that part of his game. But there's talent there. He's athletic and he's got a big arm. I'd like to see it. How about the Rams? So the Rams get back Kyron Williams. They look good, right? They look good, and I'd like to see their schedule, Jason, because they're 5-6 as well, and they're probably starting to think about playoff opportunities now that they're getting healthy. They've got Cleveland at home, then at Baltimore, home to Washington, home to New Orleans, at the Giants, at San Fran, and they're probably praying San Fran has nothing left to play for in that spot. Do you think the Rams have a real shot at getting in?
Yes. In no uncertain terms, yes. And I think really like you look at their losses over the balance of the season, they look pretty good. They're losing to the Eagles and the Niners.
Other than the Dallas game,
Cowboys.
the Cowboys game is the exception.
And that one got out of control quickly with some defensive scores and stuff like that. Like, they lose to the Eagles in a game where they were gassed. They lose to the Bengals in a game where the Bengals were playing for their lives. The Niners game obviously is a tough thematchup for them. Most of the losses I think are pretty explainable. They lose to the game that Brett Rippon started. Like, I think there's a decent signal that the Rams are good.
Yes. We got a taste of it. Like, I don't know you. I want Green Bay and Rams in, and I want Seattle and Minnesota out. I don't want
no question.
No question. I like a Dallas Rams Green Bay wild card because it makes things spicy for those top 4 seeds who have to play one of them. Obviously the NFC South's going to draw the Dallas beatdown in the first round, 5 versus 4, but damn well San Francisco and the Detroit Lions, they don't want Detroit. They don't want Green Bay and the Rams as their first round opponents.
Here you go, George. You ready? We're going to script some more stuff.
All right, give it to me.
Everybody's been dogging on the NFC playoffs. They need some juice. How about we send the Rams to Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
Stafford versus Goff.
Oh, my goodness.
3-6. Does that work for you?
Give it to me.
Definitely better than 2-7 Niners Seahawks. Anything but that. I'm
done with the Seahawks. I am so done with that team. I've seen too much Geno Smith.
Yeah.
West Virginia is the last time I liked Geno Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. A third matchup of Rams Niners in the 2-7 wild card round. No. I'm gonna have a great day watching NBA. that is a easy pass. Rams Lions though, where you get Stafford v. Goff, would be freaking electric. Would absolutely love it. And I think the Rams are good. I think the Rams are going to win some games here. The game that probably decides this for them, interestingly enough, is the Saints game on the Thursday the 21st. It's a short week for them. The Saints are havable, surely.
Yes.
And I think wins against the Browns, Commanders, and Saints and Giants is all very doable there. And that gets them to 9 wins. And I don't know how they match up especially well against the Ravens. Ravens will be coming off a bye. That's kind of a nasty spot. But the Ravens aren't as good as the market thinks. I don't think.
Ooh.
So there's a chance that that's a fun bet on the Rams spot. And yeah, they could go into that San Francisco game already kind of locked into the 6 if Seattle continues to fall apart. And like, that's the other side of the coin here is like, I'm trying not to be reactionary about what we saw with Seattle, but that offense looks
It's been bad. It's been bad for a month
so
now.
putrid.
It's been bad. The last time they looked good was against Arizona, where they still turned it over 3 times. It's been bad. Like Geno's regressed into himself again, and it's just bad all around.
Yes, and so sending Seattle into the abyss, 7-10 type of season, I think is very, very possible. They could lose out, dude. They could definitely lose out. Like
they look bad
the Titans game, they might be hanging on. They might be pick 'em in that Titans game, which might be the only game they have left that's winnable.
They have a winning record, fully healthy, no injuries, and they're getting 9 on the road here against Dallas. It's unbelievable. The market's done with Seattle.
The offensive line is so poor. And Geno Smith is playing with no confidence, and he's under massive duress, and he doesn't have chemistry clicking at all right now with the wide receiving core. They're trying to run without Kenneth Walker, and it's not working. If they score double digits against Dallas, they should consider that a success, but it's not going to be enough to win this game. Not going to be enough to turn their season around. They're in deep trouble. I think sending Green Bay to San Francisco in the 2-7 would be freaking awesome. Yeah. Jordan Love against Brock Purdy. That's got juice.
Shanahan
versus LaFleur. Yeah. LaFleur versus LaFleur, right? Wait, is Mike LaFleur? He's with San Francisco, right?
Mike
or is he with the Rams?
He went back with the Rams, I think.
He's with the Rams now?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Well, so still a lot of shared DNA there with Shanahan and LaFleur. That'll be super fun. Really young. Jordan Love probably has his stinker. But still would be a really good game. So
let me ask you about a couple lines this week.
Sorry, real quick. It's not gonna be a good game. Falcons Cowboys. nothing we can do to save that one. Sorry, guys.
It's awful. But the next round matchups potentially you might get Dallas Philly again a third time. You might get San Francisco against Detroit, or somebody else, one of the wild cards. It could be interesting, man. I like the potential playoff picture. We just got to get rid of the Vikings out of there and get rid of the teams. I don't even want to watch the Vikings anymore, let alone come playoff time. If they had Kirk Cousins, maybe. Drew, I wanted to ask you about some lines because there was some peculiar lines that went up early, and I guess they got hit. The Rams opened up 5.5, and we're down to 3.5. Yeah. Was that just like Drew, I made my numbers and I make my numbers and then I look at the lines and then I'm like, usually within context, that was the one where I couldn't figure out. Like I did not have this game over a field goal. and that was with accounting for a maybe no Myles Garrett and maybe no Amari Cooper. Like 5 was absurd, right?
Yeah, it was a big number for the reasons you're stating, which is I think the market priced in the potential for some big time injury consequences for Cleveland. Cleveland is spending the week on the West Coast, I believe, doing their practices at UCLA. Yeah. And the question about Garrett was surprising. Like I definitely thought he was going to be out for weeks, if not the rest of the season, based on the way he was talking after the game. But apparently he's built different. Yeah. And that matters. But like Garrett's loss wouldn't have had me downgrade the Cleveland defense that much.
They still had Ogbo Okoronkwo.
Yeah, they had so deep.
And Alex Wright as a third edge, like that's pretty good to real.
Yeah, you're injecting some guys who are maybe a little like fresh. Like the defense is probably still going to be good. With him gone, the bigger question surely was the offense. Yeah. DTR with the concussion, PJ Walker's unplayable. Joe Flacco's been there for a cup of coffee. And the people whispering like this might be Flacco this week, if it's Flacco this week, anything under a touchdown is better on the Rams, in my opinion, because him behind that offensive line as sitting duck, not good with Aaron Donald and Byron Young and some of the pass rush that the Rams are bringing right now. Not a good matchup.
They'll need Amari Cooper too. They have no dynamic. Sure. Like without Amari Cooper, there's nothing that's like David Njoku and his 8-yard tight end screens do not scare me, right? I'm like, as a defender, I invite that all day. You want to throw to Njoku all day, I bring it on. San Fran, Philly, obviously, this is my favorite, right? This is the in college where the ranked team is the underdog, and the announcers can't figure out why, and the media pundits can't figure out why, and the gamblers are telling you, hey, this is how we have them power rated. I had San Fran power rated higher than Philly. And then when you factor in Philly's brutal road schedule, the fact that they're like off back-to-back emotional wins against KC and Buffalo, and their defense was on the field for 94 plays. Like the situational spot here, San Fran with revenge on their mind, and all that talk of Philly saying we would have beat them anyway if Purdy didn't get hurt. Like, this is San Fran's game, right? That's why we're seeing the 2.5, 3. Now, if it gets to a full 3, there's obviously going to be some Philly interest.
Yeah. And I think you've seen it actually today.
Yes.
It hit 3 at some important places and it got bet. I agree, and I kind of agree with that, because like if you're running a pure algorithmic sim of this one, like,
what do you have it on a neutral? I have San Fran 2 on a neutral.
Yeah. Very, very close. And I worry a bit about the secondary health for the San Francisco, or just really the secondary quality for San Francisco, particularly without Hufanga, is notably concerning against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. The lack of Dallas Goedert as sort of the X factor for that passing offense, I think, is notable. But I think to get to a full 3, you need to literally build in. Not only are you getting, not only do I have the median correct between these teams,
yes,
but you're getting an 84th percentile Niners offense with a 16th percentile Philly defense, right? Like those, you're basically if you are betting this game to the Niners at this price, you are literally saying, I have some reason to believe the Niners are going to overperform and the Eagles are going to underperform.
The other part is San Fran. They, on paper, their offensive line is not great, but their scheme is so good, and obviously Trent Williams is as good as it gets. But Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford are very. They're not exactly the most proven guards or great guards. This is probably the first time where they have a real trench disadvantage, and they're gonna feel it, right?
Yeah.
Philly's trenches are legit, and there's a lot of intrigue in this game. I haven't made a bet on this game yet. I'm very, very excited to watch it, though.
I think there's some low-hanging fruit here.
All right. What you got something for this stream, or you like to hold on before announcing something?
Over 46.5.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I mean, whatever wrinkles, whatever special stuff San Francisco has in their back pocket to take advantage of this defense, I think will work.
I don't think either secondary can stop either passing game, to be honest.
Yeah. And we have a total at 46.5.
Yeah.
Under the key of 47. Like, with
two teams that are capable of big play.
Yeah. You're telling me that there's not going to be a moment in the fourth quarter where this is like 24-24?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Like, this is going to be a competitive game, I think. I don't think this is a runaway and hide for Niners. I don't think that the Eagles can generate a first half lead and play keep away like they like to do. There's the linebacking play, the run stop for the Niners is good enough that if the Eagles have a first half lead, I think that this is they're still going to be live in this game. Probably the bet, I love the pre-flop over 46.5, but even more than that, I think just betting live, whoever's losing at halftime is probably the bet, right? Like, I think both teams are capable of comeback mode.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's finish off with the Thursday night football game. Drew, like, my numbers have liked Seattle for a month now, and after I got my ass handed to me with Baltimore, I'm not going to bet the numbers anymore. There's something seriously wrong with this Seattle team right now. Geno Smith has turned it over like 30 times in the last 6 games. I don't know how anybody can trust this offense. Why the big number, though? Do you think part of it's the books are like, listen, everyone's going to tease Dallas if we hang this thing under 8.5? And it's not like, people who are interested in taking 8, they're going to want 9. And if no one wants 8, they probably don't want 9 anyways to take. Why do you think the number's so big? Is this a case of Dallas is blowing teams out, or is this mostly the markets are way down on Seattle now.
Combination, but more so, I would look to what happened last week with Dallas, Washington.
Yeah,
right. like there was not an easy way to get to a fair that was in that range.
I bet Washington.
It was not an easy way to get that big of a number.
I'm adamant that the number,
Yeah.
if the number was not, the final score was not indicative. I thought it came down to
sure.
like 4th and 1 plays, but
Sure.
you invite the pick six in, right? You invite this a high turnover probability quarterback behind a bad O-line. Some bad things could happen in this game.
Yeah, well, is that any different with Seattle?
No, that's what I mean. That's the same.
Okay. Yeah,
so
same
the
handicap.
mistake I made last week with Washington.
Yeah,
I'm not jumping in front of that train again.
Okay, so here's the other thing that's indicative about what happened last week with that game. So it was like 10, right? 10 and a half early in the week.
Yeah.
And then into close, that thing got smushed. Like
Yeah.
13 and a half. Like there was some big boy money that said we're willing to back the identity of the Cowboys as a team that will not take their foot off the gas and will go for the full knockout. Like they are not going to, fiddle F around and let the, Commanders into the back door here. They're going to continue to score, continue to press. They are padding stats. They are going for awards. Like they are doing everything against these bad teams. I don't think there's any way you can make an argument against that with the results that you have through this point in the season. And so basically there's a bimodal expectation now at the Cowboys that they're going to be in a close game and lose against good teams, and they're just going to absolutely throttle these bad teams. And Seattle now falls into that category. And so that's why this number is so big. And if Dallas gets bet again, I'm not going to be surprised even remotely. Like there's nothing about Seattle that I think is especially favorable in this matchup. They're not healthy. They're not, they're in dire straits right now. And Geno Smith starts there because he's got shoulder, he's got ankle, now knee. He was limping around, hobbling around.
Yeah.
The pass protection is a disaster. If somehow, some way, like Abe Lucas comes back and the interior offensive line all had a great week of practice and they're all feeling good, maybe things are a little bit different, but I have a hard time seeing that coming. And their offensive philosophy is stunting them significantly as well. They're running Zach Charbonnet into a cloud of dust every third snap. So, they're in trouble.
Is there a Dallas Miami tax where both teams just love to run it up against bad teams? And
sure.
And because the public already wants to bet Dallas and Miami, right? They're clearly two public profile teams. The sharps want to bet them too, and the books can't find a number that people want to back the dog at. So there's a tax saying, somebody, do you want a number on Seattle? Because I'm not interested in 9. At 10, maybe that's the first time I say, okay, all right, Seattle, what are we doing?
No, there are certain angles that manifest that I think are important to pay attention to this time of year. Like you're not going to get a median fare that's that much better than market on any game this time of year. Like you're going to have some reason to think this team's going to overperform, this team's going to underperform because of X, Y, or Z. Like that's kind of where we're at, right? And if you have an identity on a team, like think about the Andy Reid Mahomes Chiefs. They put away the good plays against the bad teams.
Yeah.
If you're out there laying 13 with Mahomes against the Seahawks, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
If you're laying 13 against the Commanders, you're in trouble because they're just trying to get in and out of there with a win. They're not going to show you anything good. The Cowboys are clearly in the other camp. Dolphins maybe in the other camp too. But the Dolphins might just be so explosive that it kind of like it might not matter.
Right? Tyreek Hill wants 2,000 yards. He wants to get that. Tua's playing for a contract. This is a team we're stat padding. There's no doubt about it. We want to run it up against everybody.
Yeah, and I think if you can identify that sort of stuff, you're going to catch some decent value because median projections would say that that there will be something end of game wise that makes the score closer, right? Yeah. But with Dallas, no, they keep their foot on the gas. With KC, they take their foot off.
With Miami, there's the you have to account for the big Tua mistake that comes in every single game. That one, even when we were covering spreads against the Giants and the Panthers, we were literally throwing a pick six and still covering 2 touchdown spreads. Right? We always give them one. They hate Drew when I call the Dolphins we. I don't know why. I'm part of the roster, and I have never advocated a Miami bet. I don't sit there and bet my team every game, but they are my team. It's part of the we. You don't feel like that about any team?
No.
Even if you bet them, you don't get that little bit of we.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
All right.
not like it's not a single team. No. If there were like I had the the bet process used to do the Calcuttas pretty regularly for all the big sports, and
Yeah.
I had the Rams the year they won the Super Bowl, and I was very, very much part of the Ramley. Like I was very, very engaged in the Ramley. I have a lot of Rams paraphernalia in my house that I have not worn since that Super Bowl. I got a nice Cooper Cup jersey, barely used. If anyone wants to make me an offer, it's got the Super Bowl insignia and all that on it. Yeah, let me know.
I had a buddy who rode the Chiefs' first Super Bowl with Mahomes, and they remixed the song "Country Roads" to Pat Mahomes "Take Me Home." So that's the fun of it. Drew, man, what a pleasure to have you on this Tuesday. I feel so honored to have you on the show. I enjoyed it. The audience, I know they love you. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Of course, and best luck this week. Hopefully, our Niners overs gets there, and if it just so happens that the Rams and the Packers get in the NFC and that the Texans and the Bills get in the AFC, like I did not have the script. I don't even read books.
I would clip this, and if that happens, Drew, I think you could start a whole new career saying you've got the script, like a lot of people do on Twitter. Thanks so much, man. If you guys enjoyed this, smash the like button and subscribe. We're like 10 subscribers away from 3,700 to 3,800, whatever the milestone is. Please do that. As a reminder, Forward Progress back again tomorrow at 2 with Rob Pizzola, Eric Eager, Sumer, and Hitman giving you their best bets and breaking down games from a betting perspective. That's it for me. Special thanks to Drew for stepping in for Sharp Clark. Thanks to producer Jason, and thanks to you, the audience. Until next time.